I was at the Lyndon Johnson Library, the George H.W. Bush Library, the George W. Bush Library, and then we stopped at Dealey Plaza to see where Lee Harvey Oswald fired the fatal shot. And so it was a very interesting trip, and I apologize for not being with you last week, but I was in a car traversing, and it just wouldn't have worked. So I'm here.
What is your, before I get into the heavy stuff of what's going on today, you were in Dealey Plaza. You suggested Lee Harvey Oswald firing the fatal shot. You don't buy that there was any conspiracy associated with that and there might have been other people involved, John Rothmann?
You have to separate two things. First, the shot was fired from the 5th floor of the Texas School Book Depository. There's no question about it. The rifle had Lee Harvey Oswald's prints on it. No question about it. He fired a shot. Was there a conspiracy? That's a whole other issue. So, like so many things that we talk about historically, you have to separate ideas. But I will tell you, I interviewed Gerald Posner when we were on KGO, and he was the man who really believed there was a conspiracy. And when I interviewed him, he was very clear. He said, John, I've investigated everything. I've done every aspect of research, and I believe that Lee Harvey Oswald is the one who killed Kennedy. So we'll leave it there because it is an endless debate.
It's literally endless. And you can talk to many credible researchers who say, John, I've researched it, and I've left no stone unturned, and there is no way that Lee Harvey Oswald was the sole perpetrator of this assassination.
Well, so there's your kicker.
Yeah.
You just said the word sole perpetrator.
Right.
The question is, did Oswald shoot from
that's almost a technicality. What I'm suggesting.
Because there are people who say no, there was a shot fired from the grassy knoll.
Right. No, that's exactly. And I may be saying that. What I'm trying to say to you is that what you've done is you've separated out conspiracy and you've separated out multiple shooters. And you've separated out, did Lee Harvey Oswald fire the weapon? I see what you're doing, John. I don't want you to think that you're getting away with this without me seeing it. So you're saying Lee Harvey Oswald fired that weapon, and on that we could have, and then you get into, might there have been another shooter, and might there then be a conspiracy to cover up some aspect of what was this more than one shooter involved and more than one involved in this assassination of JFK.
We can debate that at some point. Yes. I personally believe it was Lee Harvey Oswald. I believe he fired from that perch in the school book depository. And whether or not there were others involved, well, none of the hearings, none of the investigations have proven anything conclusive. But I will tell you what shocked me more than anything else, and it sort of goes along with it. This is my copy of the White House Guide. Now, I'm showing this to you because I know that this is on YouTube. This copy of the White House Guide is signed by 3 presidents and 7 first ladies. And I want you to be able to get a picture of that. Anyway, what shocked me more than anything else on this trip was the decision by the president unilaterally to destroy the East Wing of the White House. And I want to point out to everybody that anybody who's ever toured the White House, that's how you enter the tour, through the East Wing. And I hope you are aware that because there is no more East Wing, there are no more tours of the White House. They have been stopped. And more shocking to me than anything, how can you say that, is that just yesterday, the President of the United States fired the 6 members of the Fine Arts Committee, which theoretically supervises all of these things. And all I can tell you is he is determined to build what he's going to build, and not to mention, which nobody really talks about, the triumphal arch that he wants built in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C., I'm talking your home territory, Mark.
Yes, sir.
This, to me, is an abomination. And
first of all, I'd like to just, before you continue with this and smearing my Lord and Savior, Donald Trump, I'd like to suggest to you that you can still take a tour of the White House. You say there are no more tours. If you've got $25 million, you can go right in through another door and you can get a tour of the White House. In fact,
are you writing the check for me? You know, I'm not
telling you
on the show, so I just want to point out, if you're willing to write the check, I'm willing to go.
Everything is for sale in this White House. And one of the things I'm concerned with, in addition to the destruction of history, as you suggested. And this was, and I think it worth spending just a beat on it, because it's not just destroying the White House. Okay, let's be clear about this. It is that. And in that act, as you said, John, he bypassed the normal ways in which even there would be tepid pushback on this plan. I mean, any sort of or pro forma approval of the plan. That is to say, just through his functionaries, the Trump appointments to whatever architectural committees and historic committees typically have to give the stamp of approval on any kind of architectural change to official buildings, et cetera. The president does have control to offer these things, but it does have to be signed off on. But even that was eliminated. He just went right for the wrecking ball and these, again, plans that apparently architecturally are flawed as well. So even from a purely architectural blueprint standpoint, there are stairways that go into the side of a building. There are windows that face each other. This is, again, another slap together job. And I would suggest, and this is my real point after that lengthy preamble, I believe that there is a kind of grift going on here. And this is an administration filled with grift. And at minimum, you have this pay to play. I mean, who is funding this ballroom? Google, Apple, Palantir. I mean, these are tech companies that have business in front of the U.S. government. This is an absolute pay-to-play situation. So in this deal, which was $200 million, then it became $250 million, then it became $300 million, then it became $325 million. I mean, what are they building? Is it a ballroom or is it just a payoff pipeline? I think it's the latter.
And let me point out to you, if you just take a look at the so-called architectural design, it is completely out of proportion. It dwarfs the People's House. And so I'm only pointing this out, and I wanted to raise it because I was away last week, to tell you this is a president who is completely out of control. And the fact that he can fire at will the 6 members of the Fine Arts Committee, and the fact that there's nothing to obstruct him, is, to me, an abomination. That's all I can say.
Also, this is a great point. I mean, beginning this kind of project with a Washington winter coming, I mean, it's just absurd. Why doing this demolition and now you're going to have winter in Washington? The weather is unforgiving. And
because you live there.
Yeah, it is. There's an absurdity to it. And I also think this isn't just a ballroom, as I say. I think there's grift associated with it. I also think, I don't know what else they're building or they're modifying. There is a bunker, you may know, underneath the White House. And
there is a bunker under the White House that was put there when Franklin Roosevelt was president in World War II. You may recall that at the event of 9/11, September 11th, that bunker was used. The simple reality is he is going to build an underground fortress. Anyway, let's leave this for a moment because my outrage is so.
Anyway, I'm glad you started with it, because that's where I wanted to start as well, because I think there's a lot wrapped up in it, both the symbolism, the actual wrecking ball that was brought to the White House, but also, as I say, the grift and corruption that's on full display. Talk to me about the $230 million that the president is demanding for the pain and suffering that he endured as the witch hunt associated with various legal cases ground on.
I have no words. This man is the most corrupt president in American history. And you call him a grifter. He may be all of that. But I want you all to understand that the destruction of history, and I am a historian, I've written and studied and lived this, is to me so appalling. I also want to say a word. You may know that the House of Representatives has not been in session for some weeks, that Speaker Johnson has refused to call the House to order. Let me be clear about this. That doesn't stop committees of the House from continuing to attack Joe Biden. I have never seen such despicable action by irresponsible members of the House of Representatives as I have seen in these days. And you may know that President Biden gave a talk just day before yesterday, first talk since his cancer treatment. And he described it very simply. He said, these are tough times, but we're going to get through them. And I sure as hell hope so. Let me also, while I'm on a roll, let me just tell you, because I think it's important to point out that The House of Representatives is not in session. Speaker Johnson, by the way, did a good thing today. He announced he would oppose a third term for Donald Trump based on the Constitution of the United States. And with that statement, Donald Trump sort of downplayed it as well. He even said that he would not run for vice president on a ticket, as some people have suggested. And I just want you to be clear, the first person who ever suggested this method of evading the 22nd Amendment was David Broder. And David suggested that Barry Goldwater take Dwight Eisenhower as his running mate. And of course, it went nowhere, and the idea was to boost Goldwater's position. But we also had the position when Joe Biden was nominated for president. There was a talk of Obama being added to the ticket in order to strengthen it. These illusions are very clear. There is no third term available to Donald Trump constitutionally.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is the way. I don't want to spend too much time on this because I don't even think the guy. I don't know how much. I don't know how much gas is still in the Trump tank, but
but how about a ticket? How about a ticket of Vance and his running mate, Donald Trump Jr.?
Well, I think Donald Trump Jr. is relevant politically. I mean, even as he grifts through this presidency, my God, the way in which the Trump family is grifting off of this presidency, unprecedented. Of course, billions of dollars in the crypto scheme. The crypto scheme is so simple, and they have managed to create billions of dollars, billions with a B, dollars of wealth to the Trump family personally. Hunter Biden was on the board of Burisma. Was that what it was? The energy company?
Yes.
And in Ukraine. And there was this hue and cry from the GOP. And I think, again, it was legal, but it was, again, he's not exactly this guy who has who's steeped in an energy background. He got it because his last name was Biden, and he was connected to Joe Biden. That said, you never heard the end of it. I mean, they're still on a jihad about Biden and the Biden crime family.
Oh, they're going after Biden now over the whole question of auto pen signatures. Can I tell you, I have a book on John F. Kennedy's auto pen and how often the Kennedy signatures were given by auto pen. It's a fascinating compilation put together in the 1960s. And all I can tell you is for presidents to have these auto pen machines, it's absolutely there. That's why if you want to really examine a presidential autograph, you want to make sure it's flat signed. But that's a whole other story.
Yeah. So again, just to the point, the grift is on full display. And so we get back to tariffs, which I always felt, and I've made this point repeatedly, are a system of patronage. When you impose these tariffs, you've now, across the board, created a situation in which countries have to come to you and offer things to you to offset the tariffs, to give them tariff relief, to give them tax relief of one sort or another. And I'm not talking about giving America a break. I'm talking about things offered to Trump. You've seen it in the Middle East. You've seen it in Asia. I wonder if you can give me your take now on the situation with tariffs and on Trump's efforts to sort of put Humpty Dumpty back together again with both the Japanese and the Chinese.
Well, I'm going to first make the statement about missing in action. Who is missing in action on this tariffs? The Supreme Court, which has been asked to rule on the question of whether a president can impose tariffs. Let me tell you, the president doesn't have that right. That is reserved to the Congress, and the Hoots-Smalley Act of 1930 is the best example. So my answer to you is we have a dysfunctional government. Not only is the House of Representatives not in session, but the Supreme Court is missing in action. And this is one of the tremendous things. And you're right. These are apparent payoffs. These are reciprocal, if you will, in the sense of benefit. And you and I had an argument once, and I regret to say you were right. And that had to do with my belief in the balance of power based on three co-equal branches of government. I commend you to listen to Anthony Kennedy, retired Justice of the United States Supreme Court, who made the statement that our entire democracy is at stake because the balance of power, these co-equal branches of government, are being shattered. So may I tell you, the big news for me is to watch the Supreme Court and what it does on the question of presidential power, on the question of tariffs, On the question, one other quick thing. I'm teaching a course in the spring, rather in January, on Edward R. Murrow. And I am very concerned about the drift, if you will, of news media. Barry Weiss has just been named the person to be in charge of CBS News. This is absolutely a disgrace. Not that Barry Weiss isn't very bright, not that she isn't someone who is a very effective writer, but can you imagine what Edward R. Murrow would be thinking? That Barry Weiss would be in charge of CBS News?
You don't have to go back to Edward R. Murrow. I mean, just a decade
Walter
ago.
Cronkite.
Yeah, any of these people who
Eric
are associated
Severide.
This is the Tiffany Network, which was
disgusting.
referred to as such because of the high-end nature of everything from journalism to programming.
May I make one other comment while we're at it? I mean, I know that you like to ask me questions, and I tend to run every which way because I have so much to say in such a short time. And that is, please take a look at what's happening in the White House in terms of the press room. There is no more press corps in Washington, D.C. The White House has effectively destroyed the ability for the press to cover the White House. And I am also going to say they have now extended that to the Department of Defense. It's the Department of Defense, ladies and gentlemen, not the War Department. There is no War Department.
What John is talking about, of course, is the purging of the press from the Pentagon unless they would sign a pledge to only use information that came from the Pentagon. So you can't work any sources. You can only essentially become readers of press releases that come out of the Pentagon. So when you look at the history of the Pentagon when it comes to information, there is more disinformation out of that agency than I would suggest, at least it rivals any other institution in Washington. Look at what they did in Vietnam. Look at what they did in Afghanistan. Look at what they did in Iraq. I mean, you will never get the straight story from the Pentagon. So the idea somehow that you are going to sign a pledge to only repeat what Pete Hegseth tells you to repeat, it's absurd. And so they all pulled out. Only one American news network, that's what they're called, OANN. They continue there, and with a bunch of other people who are just excited to be at the Pentagon and get clearance. It's
you were right.
Again, it's again the fall of a free press in America, and in government. Don't you need a free press, John, to essentially give the people a window on what's happening with their government, the government that they own?
Of course you do. Let me make one other quick. I mean, I love doing these comments, and I hate to be so brief with you. But when I was in Texas, we listened to talk radio. We drove distances in Texas. It was all right-wing radio. It was all the same nonsense. And I sat with a couple in Dealey Plaza, African-American couple. We shared a bench to have lunch. There are not a lot of benches there. There are only 2 benches. We sat together. And they were driving. And I talked to them, and I said, tell me what you think of what's happening. And his answer was, Donald Trump is my president. And I said, do you have any mixed feelings? He said, look, he said, he's the president. We've got to support him. And I was so upset because I know that that's not what he really feels in terms of policy. And that's the thing. It is the stifling of policy, the stifling of dissent. And I learned something else, and I say this very respectfully. The destruction of KGO in San Francisco was not just a tragedy for our community. It's a tragedy for the country, because what we did together was to have diversity of opinion. And that is what we need in these days. So I'm very disturbed about everything. And if you want, I'll throw in one more thing. And that is, as I told you some weeks ago, there is no peace in the Middle East. The ceasefire is a fake and a phony. And all you have to do is understand the Israelis hit hard in Gaza yesterday. And what did Donald Trump do? He said, oh, that's okay. They can do it. And the Israeli response was, great, now we'll go back to the ceasefire. To tell you of the absurdity of Donald Trump pretending to be someone who is bringing peace is, to me, absolutely beyond comprehension.
Well, I will then get in on this, John, because I said at the time, yet again, I'm right about yet another thing. I'm telling you, I don't mean to be peacocking, but I do mean to tell you.
I'm kind of a big deal.
I do think
you are kind of a big deal.
I apply perhaps the appropriate cynicism at the time, and now in all seriousness, I said, I'm ready to give Trump, who is the gangster, and he's a, I think he's like Mafia Don politician. I've told you what I think. Meeting with other Mafia Don gangsters, and those are those rulers of the Middle East, UAE, Qatar, the Saudis, the Egyptians. They are all in the same category, in my judgment. Again, there are differences. Happy to talk about them another time, but just from a bottom line standpoint, it took a gangster to meet with the other gangsters, and in a completely transactional moment, produce a ceasefire and hostage release and prisoner exchange on both sides. Now, I felt even as he deserved credit for that, I was not ready to give him the Nobel Prize or anything. The guy's turning troops loose on American cities. He's blowing Venezuelan fishermen out of the water with these extrajudicial killings. So I was very tough on him from that standpoint, but I did feel he deserved credit for bringing that moment, stopping the bleeding in that moment in the Middle East. This is where you and I disagreed, and Cece writes this.
We didn't disagree.
Please ask Rothmann if he still thinks Trump deserves the Nobel, considering the peace deal was all theater. Fighting continues in Gaza. I guess you had said, I think I wasn't here that day, that he deserves the Nobel Prize.
My comment had to do with the release of the hostages. The fact that the 20 surviving hostages held by Hamas were released and are back in Israel, he deserves recognition for that. Now, the motivations and all the rest, that's a whole other issue. But in my mind, Donald Trump is the biggest fraud to ever sit in the White House. And of course, he doesn't deserve the Nobel Peace Prize, but he does deserve recognition. And if a prize were given for hostage release, then he deserves it.
Look, the whole prize thing and Nobel thing, I mean, they gave Nobel Prize, they gave the Peace Prize to Barack Obama. He'd been in office like 45 minutes. It was crazy. I mean, even Obama was embarrassed about that. So I don't know that the Nobel Peace Prize is,
it's
necessarily anything. But
just like Donald Trump's triumphal arch that he's going to build in your hometown.
Yeah.
It's all similar. By the way, we forgot to mention, you know the name of the new ballroom? It'll be the Trump Ballroom.
Yeah.
I mean, there is.
It should be called the Palantir Ballroom or the Google Ballroom. Those are, by the way, the only awards that really do still have any significance are these golden mics behind me. Thank you, everybody. All right.
Modesty,
John, we appreciate you. I've got to wrap up.
You're shutting me down again?
It should be called the Epstein Memorial Ballroom, says Stella Luna. Exactly. Epstein. Everybody wants the Epstein Ballroom. Yeah, Jane O, same thing.
No. Then you got to watch something, because I'm now going to be very interested when the House reconvenes and the representative-elect from Arizona is seated, and there are 218 votes for the discharge resolution. It's going to be very interesting because for some reason, Trump and the Republicans do not want that to happen. But I would be remiss if I didn't point out again that you must support the Mark Thompson program. Please do contribute. Please do subscribe. And may I say, it is always a high honor and great personal privilege.
We enjoy it as well. You can find John Rothmann, the voice of San Francisco. It's thevoicesf.org. His podcast is there, and also Around the Political World with John Rothmann. We'll talk to you next Wednesday. Thank you, John Rothmann.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.